We're going to be doing some code for animations in this game. So I'll show you sort of what we're working with right now, which is we have our character Brick, and he's pretty cool, and he does this like little sliding around type thing. And Slime was asking for a job. That's some prototype stuff that we're putting in there with conversations. I'm going to just adjust that right now and take that out. But the thing is that Brick is sliding around. We don't want him to slide. I mean, he's cool, but we really want him to be specifically walking from point to point. So we need to put in those walk animations. But there's a little bit of effort to it. There's more than just left and right walking animations. We actually support 8-way directional walking because there's perspective on the camera. And we could set up individually for each of the characters to have like their own walk animations, but instead, since we're gonna have many characters that are gonna be walking around in Starr Mazer, it's best if we have a component that we can just add on to them and tell them what animations they should be triggering at what angle they're walking. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to write up a couple of classes. One is going to just be able to be a generic class which determines where the player is walking, or actually when we're within a range of it. We're going to completely separate it from the input. Then we're going to use that class to pass in the input and send out events when we're within those ranges. And we're going to have a view class that will actually take those ranges and translate it into walking animations. So there's sort of I guess 3 steps to this. We're going to be setting up the angle component, which will determine angles if they're within a range and if they are, fire off an event. So we'll get that working first. Then we'll connect it up to our game inputs. So instead of having test data firing this off, we're going to make sure that it's controlling our WASD or whatever direction the player is coming in from. Then finally, we'll end up hooking that to our animation tool, and we'll see Brick walking around in multiple angles. So got plenty of stuff to do today. I'm going to be looking over to the left to check out the chat. You see it right here, but I see it over here. And we already got some people in. S-Train and Big Bold Flank has joined us, so welcome to everyone. So yeah, once again, just to test this out so we can see where we're at and make sure I stop that one event that I don't want firing. This is sort of the situation we're in right now where Brick is sliding all over the place. And we don't want him sliding. We're going to have him make some sweet moves. And that's the plan. So let's get into it. Hey Triptide, welcome to the show. So I was taking some notes about sort of the things that we're going to do. We're going to focus on this angle calculator first. As I mentioned before, it's going to be a generic class that it's going to take in an input of 2 values, our velocity, and it's going to determine what angle we're facing. It's also going to allow us to set thresholds, and it's going to fire off an event whenever we change into one of those thresholds and to say what threshold it is. So let's go ahead and create ourselves a class for this. You'll notice one of the improvements I made to this show today is that we have music. You are listening to bits and pieces that may or may not become the soundtrack of Starr Mazer. These are all various sketches that some of them are on SoundCloud, some of them have not been heard yet, so you'll get some sneak peeks there. And yeah, so let me know how the audio levels are. If you can still hear me, if you need the music louder or less, if you need me louder or less, let me know and I'll make some tweaks to that. Alright, so let's create this angle calculator. Little trick if you're using Unity, whenever you create a new script, sync your Mono Develop project. It'll make it so that it runs nice and speedy. Alright, so we have this angle calculator. And we gotta remember what it is that we want to do. So we need to be able to set thresholds, which are limits as to when we pass over a certain angle. We need to take an input of X and Y, which will determine our angle. And then we need to fire an event when we breach that threshold, breach these thresholds. All right. So let's set up, I'm guessing we just want it to be an array of floats. And I'm designing a little bit of this in my head. So I might do this thing where I just stop and look at it. It's because I'm thinking about how it's supposed to work. So we're going to have a get angle. And we're going to use a math function to get our angle. And we're going to convert that to degrees because we want to work in human readable numbers. And then the way we want to deal with this is, hey Cerberus, the way we want to deal with this is having a breach over the threshold. Now originally when I was thinking about this in my head, we would have a sort of interface that would show, but like sort of the bottom and the max and us flipping through these. So like we're going to take a sphere or a circle and split that up into various pieces. But we might want certain thresholds to be, because of the perspective on the camera, we don't want them to be evenly split up. So we want the user to be able to set that. We'll probably end up setting it once and using those numbers for everything, which we can use as defaults. But we still, this tool, this angle calculator, is a little more agnostic than that idea. It doesn't know exactly where we want to be. So it needs to be able to take in many thresholds. But ideally we want to be able to limit it so that the thresholds don't go above 360 and they don't go below 0. So all ranges have to be with that. And then we have to determine what are our ranges. So I guess we can always do an upper limit. We can read these thresholds as upper limits. I think that might be a good way to do it. Let's try that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through all the thresholds and we're going to see what our angle is, and whatever is the highest one it's a part of, that's the one that we're going to trigger. And we're going to remember what threshold we were in, what group we were in, because if that changes, then we go ahead and trigger. Because this is going to run every update, but we don't want to change the animation every update. We only want to change the animation when the player hits a certain threshold. So what we'll do is we'll step through all the thresholds. That implies they're always increasing in value. So that's sort of an implementation. I'm not really putting restrictions on that in the editor to be able to set them up that way, but that's sort of the way we want to do it. We'll leave that for now, and if we need to clean up the implementation, we'll do so later and put some limits on what can and can't be entered. We could make a little like custom struct that would only take certain ranges, but for now we'll leave it broad. So this will get us into our current threshold. Actually, what we should do, we should have an int a new threshold equals current threshold. And we'll change this to new, so we can do a comparison. If new threshold does not equal current, then we're going to fire our event. So let's create an event. This is going to be, I guess we're just going to send an int, because we want to know sort of what section we're in. Yeah, I think that's how we're going to do it. And we're going to send the current threshold. Sweet, so that's our angle, and that will fire off an event every time we change this threshold. That's really all there is to it, so let's go ahead and test this out. What I want to do is create a new game object. Let's make sure I don't, look at that, I have an error. Delegate. Oh, okay. I have to create a new delegate. I could just use the system event handler. I guess I'll create one. Public delegate. What am I call this? That should be better. Sweet. All right. So you got these angle thresholds. Let's put 4 up. So we'll go around. And we're going to just make something, we'll debug.log. And we're just going to spit out what we have. All right. And I'm just going to make a, right in here, test. Float. Test angle equals 0. Test angle plus equals time dot delta time times 10. So let's make it go through pretty quickly. And then we want to do get angle. Oh, I have to do test input X, test input Y, we're just going to do a sine wave thing. So this will have our values changing. Just input Y. I'm excited for Triptide's freaking huge post. Yeah, everyone's been getting really active on the forums, which is pretty sweet. I need to be more active on the forums. I am more active in the code than I am in the forums, which is probably good for the game, but not great for hanging out with you guys, so I appreciate you all joining us. Alright, let's just give this a shot and see what happens. See if our thing works. Gotta wait for it to compile. Alright. We are breaching thresholds. that's not really the value I'm expecting. We keep hitting the same threshold. I'm using current threshold. Forgot to assign it, so that's important. But then I'm getting a weird angle. This is not the angle that I was expecting. Oh, did that backwards. I was turning my radians into radians. That's not useful. I need to turn my radians into angles. Why would a program... Servers saying programmers would slack off. I don't know why you'd ever slack off. You get to work on this game. I have to balance actually doing other things. So we're hitting all of our thresholds, which is pretty cool. We can see that the input values are going. This is what I'm looking at down here. These logs. And so what we can see is that every so often the value is changing. What I'm actually doing is doing a loop where it's basically just rotating the stick around in a circle, in a very slow circle. But we can see us going to the different thresholds. So our value is working. It's triggering only once whenever we breach into another one, which is really good. So this should be good. Yeah. 0, 2, 1, 0. 2, 1, 0. Yeah. We're not hitting 3, but I think it's just because the value's not getting there. Yeah, it's never breaching 180, which is totally fine. So that should be good. So we should be able to use this angle calculator now to take game inputs. So let's hook that up. Well, we're going to want to create a view that takes gamepad inputs and sets the animation based off of it using one of these angle calculators. So I wonder if I don't want to make angle calculator, I think I don't want to make angle calculator a mono behavior anymore. I want it to be just a class that something else can implement and set those based off its mono behavior elements. The mono behavior I want to make is the multi-walk component. So if we go back to our other notes, we can take a look at, we have a multi-walk animator, which is sort of the other piece of the puzzle. So this has one of the angle calculators, and it's going to listen to that value changing, and once one of those thresholds breaches, it's going to trigger to play a different animation. So we need to create thresholds, and for each threshold we need an animation. So yeah, right now we'll do it the lazy way, and then we'll have two sort of set values. We could clean that up with a custom expector, which I'll probably do because I want this to be a really nice tool that we use all over the place. This is sort of ambiguous, and you could use this in any sort of situation, not only just in Starr Mazer where you have a character moving in 8 directions, but anytime you want something to face different directions, you would be able to use this thing that we're building. So pay attention to this if you ever need to build something where you want something to face in different directions, which is quite often in various types of games. Like imagine in Zelda, right? Like you're running along and you want your character to face a different direction and you don't want to do all 360 degrees. Well, with this tool you could do 360 degrees. That might be a bit excessive. You probably would implement something else. But either way, you can change the sprite based off that. So this is a way to do that technique. I don't know if this is the best way. This is just something I thought of like today, but it's a way that I imagine doing this. So we're going to make the multi-walk animator. And that's our next part. I really dig this song. This song's pretty good. Rock'em Sock'em just asked, do all these videos go up on YouTube? And Starr Mazer already replied with yes. Yeah, so there are parts that I'm sort of figuring out and explaining things, so if you want to like just have a quick tutorial on it, it's good to go onto the YouTube and just be able to skip to the sort of meaty parts. In addition, you can look at our backlogs to see where we implemented other various aspects of the game. So, we've got ourselves a new multi-walk. And we're going to make this not a mono behavior anymore, so let's get our test and get rid of that. Mono behavior is a thing in Unity that allows us to see it in the component view in the inspector. We don't want to see this in the inspector. Instead, our multi-walk animator is going to have an angle calculator. And it's going to have its own view of thresholds. And I'm actually going to set a default here, because I know the thresholds that I really want. Actually, I didn't divide 360 by 8. Let's go to our calculator. 45 degrees. So every 4, that makes sense because I just did 90, and you know, sometimes you just get into a thing and you don't really think about it too much, which is always fun. I can math. 315, that's the one. So this will set default values for our angle thresholds, which with the 8-way direction element, these are the thresholds that we're going to want to use. I might actually have to offset them to be halfway through these points, but depending on something that I'm thinking of, but I'll figure that out. I'm going to take a look at the chat. We got a question. Cerberus is asking, what are my thoughts on adding game hints into Starr Mazer? My thoughts are that it should be based off the difficulty that you pick. And I've been thinking about this a little bit and how we're going to deal with difficulties in conversations, in puzzles. And I think I'm pretty held to making so that the harder the game is, the less hints it provides and the more options you have. It's much easier to choose the right one if like you have 2 choices and it's right or wrong, right? But when you have a multitude of choices and they all have different elements of being right and wrong, or they have different degrees of being right and wrong, and the right choice is a lot more difficult. So there's issues with that. That affects sort of what we record in the game world, so I'm not positive I want to do that. There's a lot of risks to it, but it feels a very natural way of doing difficulty in a PNC. So yeah, we have another question. Is anyone else video stopping every so often, or is it? Oh, they're asking about an issue of implementation or of the quality of the video. Yeah, let me know if it's stuttering for everyone. I might have to adjust my settings. So, all right, we've got our angle thresholds. The next thing we're gonna want is a list of animations. We're gonna take strings just because the toolkit 2D toolkit component takes names and plays from that. So animation names. All right, sweet. We're going to create a constructor for our angle calculator, and we're going to throw the angle thresholds in. Actually, we want a reference to these thresholds so that if we update them, it'll update it real time. I'd really like to do that. I think I can do that. Let's see here. So we can get rid of those notes. So we're going to take those thresholds and we're actually going to just set our angle thresholds to the new thresholds. If I'm correct, this will be a shallow copy and they'll modify each other, which is what I want. If not, I'll have to set something else up. Oh man, Cerberus just put brackets around the question so I could easily see it, which I really like it. Yeah, so Cerberus doesn't want hints. So yeah, it's one of those things where like, you know, you don't want to get helped out through the game until you've been stuck for 80 hours. But yeah, we don't want hints to just like come up and like ruin your experience. But we also want like people who wouldn't know to turn them on or off to have the option to have them. So. But hint doesn't mean like, oh, a thing pops up on your screen. It's like, did you know that you should select option 3? You always want hints to be sort of more natural in the world. Like, Imagine a scenario where you're stuck and you're having a problem, right? It would be natural for a friend to come over to help you. So if you start looking at hints as the ways of characters having different interactions with you, they feel a lot more seamless, and they actually don't even really seem like hints. It just seems like, oh, Slime will recognize that I was in trouble and help me out, which is a very different experience, but the end goal is the same. Anyway, getting to this question. We make sure every death in Starr Mazer, more specifically the shrimp bits, have plenty of explosions that may really make you feel accomplished for killing them. That's a question for Maximo, but the answer is times 10. And Rex asks, will you have an option to get on stage with bands playing in clubs, bars to do a rhythm minigame? Yeah, the Kinect implementation hasn't been progressing too quickly. This is a joke. Yeah, but I do love rhythm games. We'll see how much rhythm games play in Starr Mazer. Alright, so angle calculator dot... Did I just have an update? Get angle, that's what it was. And I'm going to have to take an input, so what we're going to do is get the move object. There might be an issue with this. I might use last move speed. Let me go take a look at this. So this move object is the thing that we use to move our characters around in the world. It's separated from the game input so that we can plug in any sort of controller and make the move work, which is super convenient. But I need to look at how I'm updating this, because I reset at move speed. We have change speed, and then in update is where we set that. Yeah, so this is going to get reset. Yeah, we actually want access to the X speed, not the X move speed. Or the self-drive is really what I want access to. But I don't have access to self-drive. Yeah, X speed is the thing that we're using. So X speed is the thing that I need access to. I don't have access to it. So I either need to provide access to it or find another way of doing this. But even so, X speed gets reset during the update. So what happens is that our multi-walk animator is checking things on update. So if I pass in these values, they're going to be null or 0, because we haven't taken into consideration those values. It might run the update before or after, but we can't rely on that. That would be an issue of a race condition. So instead we want something else, which is last move X is probably pretty good to use. Which is looking at, yeah, how much we're actually moving. So yeah, we're going to use last move. That'll work fine. That gets the last frames update. And 1 frame off is going to be fine for the animation. Yeah, so Cerberus is pretty hardcore and doesn't like help at all. So yeah, there's it's definitely something to take with a lot of consideration, especially in a puzzle game. The worst situation is getting stuck. You want to feel like you've solved all these problems. And so part of that is in good design of the puzzles, making it so that you can solve them with the information that you have presented to you. And if we don't present the information, that's a problem. Like if you ever need a hint with a puzzle, we're probably doing it wrong. So that's more of a design fix. But there are certain things that it's nice to be able to maybe not have a hint, but just have a conversation about it. And so I'd like to use the characters to do that, but we'll see how that flies when we put all that content in the game. All right. So we're going to take in our movement, and yeah, next thing we need to do is subscribe to our angle calculator. And we want to make sure that we unsubscribe to it when this thing's destroyed so we don't get any memory leaks. Memory leaks are bad, kids. Don't put them in your game. And then yeah, so we're going to have the threshold. We're going to need a TK2D sprite animator. and we will just play the animation. Animation names. Group. Let's put in a little check there. Make sure we don't get an out of range exception in case someone puts some wrong data in here. So this should be good to go. We're gonna need a little bit of sprites to test this out. Let's go ahead and modify our character now. So we're gonna go get Brick. Brick is in our prefabs. I have like organization to our project or something. It's nice. So we'll get Brick out here. We're going to slap this on his sprite. We'll create a new multi-walk. So we're going to take the move action, which is right up here. Take the animator, which is right on him. We have our 8 thresholds, which is really nice. I should put a default for animation names as well. And for now, they're all going to be idle. I'm particular about my spacing. Let's see here. TripDread says, Austin, if not yet, look into Machinarium, as Kaz, you played it a bit yesterday. Yes, you could see the playthrough of Machinarium on YouTube, I think right now. So yeah, you can check out when Kaz and the Mazers went through Machinarium. Yeah, they have a little book in there where you actually play a shmup to unlock a solution. Which is, you know, I didn't even make that connection that you play a shmup in Machinarium, so it's a point-and-click adventure shmup if you're using the hint system. But I remember hearing a lot of positive reaction to that sort of mechanic, and so it might be really cool. A hint's not really a hint if you have to earn it, right? And so I'm just sort of going off the top of my head at this point, but what if, like, you were stuck on a problem and you knew that off in some certain location there was more information about this. Like you're trying to solve some puzzle and there's like a key or someone who has solved this puzzle before, someone who's been here, and you know that there is a certain location. Well, if you could fly to them and go talk to that person or go find that key and then bring it back, well, it's not really using a hint, it's getting another item. You could solve it without that, but if you went and got it, then you could be able to use your shmup skills to surpass the puzzle, which is sort of a cool combination of the things. So, Esrain, and Cerberus, thank you for this discussion and for that idea. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Triptide was specifically the one who brought that up, so thank you very much. Yeah. Alright, sweet. So you guys keep talking about hints. I'm going to keep talking about animations. So we have that in there. I actually need to now put some animations in. A little trick in Unity. If you fill out one, it'll fill out the rest all the same. So what we need to do is bring some sprites into the project. Because I actually don't even have the sprites for Brick yet. I don't even have a character group. I'm going to create that. Let's create some folders. We'll get Brick. And really, I'm going to just put everything in here. Oh, there we go. Sprites Brick. Import new asset. Alright, now you can see where all our files are. Maybe secret hidden other folders. What other things would be in here? Alright, we got our 8-way rock. So yeah, this is sort of the walk animation that we're going to be putting in. We got those 8 directions. So, let's grab all these assets. Oh, you're not allowing me. Nope, we're gonna... Do not want... Yeah, no, you're not playing nice to me. I was gonna select them all, but it wouldn't let me do that. So I have to drag them from my file browser. Okay, he did cut up the run. And see, with this tool, we'll be able to actually very easily put in the run animation, like moments after. Ideally. SRAM wants more and longer unskippable cutscenes of Brick just standing there looking at items and objects, of course. Alright, so now we've got this sweet walk animation. Let's open up our brick collection. Brick collection, here we go. So this is a 2D toolkit. We've played around with this a little bit before. We're going to import all of these. I'm going to dice it up. I think we want to dice it up. 8 by 8. Yeah, we can probably reuse some of that, so that'll be good. Apply that to everything. Good. I need to put the outline on all these guys. We just put in our outline shader so we can have things outlined when you select them. But we'll do that later. So we're we're cutting up the atlas right now. So it's splitting up all of these sprites individually. Sweet. So now we have oh, it's still cutting them up. We're going to soon have a cool atlas. I just like to look at it. 2D Toolkit's a really powerful tool. I highly suggest you look into it if you're doing 2D development. Although Unity does, by default, have very nice 2D features at the moment, it's come a long way. And so all of those sprites and walks were actually chopped up into this. And we can notice that it's able to break these down into really small bits, reuse parts of them, so we save texture space significantly. Those 64 frames are put onto a 128 by 256, which is pretty slick. So we have our those all made. We actually need to go ahead and make some animations. I don't know if I have it in here. Brick animation, yeah. Okay, so we already have a talk animation, which is pretty sweet. Let's get some more space here. Okay. Got our brick talk animation, so we're going to make a new one. We're going to create a bunch of different animations. We're going to have walk north. Well, let's just do these in order. A little bit quick. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Look at that. Look at that strut. Just check out that strut. Yeah. This is like good music for it, you know? Just straight strutting. Alright, let's get back to making games. Alright, got that. And now we're going to make a bunch of clips. I don't think I can duplicate these. No, I can't. Hey, Onocron, if you're watching, you should add the ability to duplicate animations. That'd be great. It'd be the best. Everyone would be your friend. Here we go. Alright, we got our brick down. Got this one. Down left. Look at that. Man, we got some great artists working on this game. I do love this autofill feature though. That's super nice. It just automatically loads them all as long as they're named correctly. And since we keep strict naming conventions, much to maybe the dismay of the team, but to my delight. Nope, that's not the right one. Yeah. Walk west. Loving it. Rex, question. I am very, very lazy. How do I break the habit and learn what I need to make games? Get excited. That's how you break laziness. don't you want to make games? Like, are you like making games is pretty cool? You should like do that. Like that's, I guess, like that's sort of the secret, right? You just, oh, hey there. There are various things you can do to motivate yourself, but really, like, you just gotta want to do it. Like, you gotta want to make a thing. Another thing to do is to remove all obstacles. Anything that will make it slightly more difficult for you to make a game, don't do that. Do the easier thing. Like, you want to make a game, you don't want to learn a programming language. That's the thing that stops a lot of people. They're like, oh man, like, I want to make a game. And so the first thing they do is they start to learn like C or C++. That's not making a game, that's learning a programming language. There are plenty of ways to make games without knowing any programming. There's tools like Game Maker, Multimedia Fusion, RPG Maker. Like, do what you want to do. If you're really all about writing, you might want to look into something like Twine, where you're just writing interactive fiction. If you're really into the visual aspect of it, you know, use something like there's like, you can use Multimedia Fusion or Game Maker or something that's like just very visual focused, or RPG Maker. So there's like very little code and logic that you have to do. If you want to focus on writing, but you want, like, if there's a certain genre of games you like to make, like, or that you're really into, focus on making something in that tool. You know, there's a visual novel editor for Python. There's a fighting game maker called Mugen if you want to make a fighting game. There's an FPS creator if you want to do that. You can do mods, like, just whatever's the easiest to get to your goal, do that. As you get better and you require your games to be more complicated, to be more involved, then you can go ahead and start learning the more complicated stuff. But remove all obstructions. That's how you fight laziness, because it'll be so easy that even your laziness won't even be able to uphold how simple it is to make the game. And then as soon as you start doing it, then you sort of get addicted and you don't stop making games, and then it's, you know, 10 years later and you're talking on a Twitch stream and you're hanging out with a bunch of people because they want to watch you make Starr Mazer, you know? That just happens. Alright, so we got our northeast, northwest, yes, we got our directions. Yeah, we have all of our directions. Awesome. So we have our walk animations. Great. Save all of that stuff. That's here. Oh yeah! S-Rain just poked an awesome link. The Humble Bundle right now is doing a Humble Game Maker bundle. I actually want to pick it up to get Sprite Lamp, which is something we're probably going to use in Starr Mazer. So you should totally grab that. For like 12 bucks, you can have all the game making tools. It's an amazing deal. This week only, so you should get on that. Alright, we got our brick. We are ready to link up his animations. Let's close the screen a little bit. One thing that I'm going to point this out, you're going to see this on the stream. This is like crunchy, right? Like those pixels, they look kind of weird and gross and whatnot. That's because this resolution in the editor is being shared. The sprites actually look good, but I am downscaling this from a non-pixel perfect resolution. That's just for my editor. That's not how the game looks. We won't make our game look like dicks. That's fine. Alright, so if we are facing 0 degrees, we want to be going walk east. If we break 45, we want to do walk southeast. And let's just go around. I'm making guesses at these, so this might not be perfect. Let's give that a shot. Okay, so we're gonna hit apply, and we're gonna play the game and see if it works. I don't know. Alright, nothing is triggering. Oh, I think I know why. We still have our test data in here. We don't want that anymore. Okay. Absinthe Gaines has joined us. Hey there. Servers 0 to 10. Servers looks like dicks. 0 to 10. Servers doesn't have enough dicks. Oh man, I'm glad you all are very familiar with the IGN rating schemes. So we're not getting any adjustments at all, which I don't like. We are breaching a threshold, so that should be at least triggering one of our animations. Oh. Now I named them correctly. Let's find out what's going on here. we're going to see if our multi-walk animator is even hearing this. Alright. This song, super dope. I'm a big fan of this. Also, it's because Alex wrote it for me, and so I feel very special. So we changed to group 1. That should have triggered an animation. Something else is triggering an animation on Brick. That's our issue. Something's overwriting our hard work. We need to find out what that is. Brick spray. And we're not getting the input data either. And I think I know why. I have something that's a move character. No, this something extends move object. Here we go. We're not setting the last. That's why. Okay. So this whole thing where we set last move. Excellent. Let's go expose those variables to our subclasses. So I should explain what's going on. We have a different component called the walk move object. This is a slightly different implementation from the generic move object, which we use for most things in the game. We use that for moving ships around, and we used to also move it for characters. But because we're using the physics system to determine collisions, we need movement to be on fixed updates, so you bump into them and it's all smooth. But we don't want that for our shmup sections because we want perfect control of it. We don't want to be adjusting physics. So we actually have a physics system to move the characters around in point and click, and we have just generic translation to move them around the shmup. You don't notice the difference. They both feel tight, but for implementation reasons, to take advantage of Unity's collision system, we're using that. So where is our last mode? Here we go. I'm going to make that protected. Not a projected variable. Alright. Sweet. Let's see what that does. We should now be getting updated variables. Still not getting any input data. Let's see. We did get an initial change to group, which means our angle calculator is working. We're just not getting any input. So, let's see what our last move is. I'm still convinced that these are not updating. So we're going to prove that by logging it out. Hey, Big Bull Flank, I've got this on a hardwire internet connection. Yeah, so we're firing 0, every time, which is not what we want. And it's Bull Big Flank. I always say it backwards. But he hates me for it. I'd hate me for it. Let's move. Alright, let's take a look at this. I expect it to be 0, but we're actually setting it to a value, so I actually expect it not to appear. That's my thought. Oh, I'm outputting this for a bunch of characters. But we have values going in. Okay, so we are getting values. And they're getting set and fix update. Do they ever get reset? Let's take a look at that. That could be an issue. Ah. Yeah. Nope, void update's doing nothing. So we're getting values in the walk move object, but they're not going to our multi-walk animator correctly. They're always coming out as 0. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. These would be getting reset to 0 for some reason. Fix update should always be happening after update, and it should just be the last phrase. Let's try this. Let's see what the values are on the update of the walk move object. Also, let's make sure I got the right object. So we're still to get nothing here. So that means on the update here, last move is getting set to something like 0. What is setting last moves to 0 though? The only other thing that could be setting it is this update. If my theory is correct, I'm going to put a log in here and we shouldn't see anything. If my theory is incorrect, then I think I found a problem. Okay, good. As expected, that's not running. Let's take a look at break and see if things are assigned correctly. Brick sprite, here we go. Let's look at this view a little bit more. Yeah, we've got our walk move object. So, something is setting our last move to a value we don't want it to be. Oh, maybe. If we're not getting output. No, that should be fine. That should actually set things how we want it to be. Well, welcome to StarrMazer.Make, where we debug something that we can't find where it's losing it. We're going to do something a little brute force, maybe? Let's try this. Nothing should be setting this. What is it? Override, void start, something like that. Unless start is not a function that we use. No, we don't even do anything on start. I don't have to override it. Great. Okay, so what I'm testing is I'm setting these values right to the beginning at 100, and I don't expect anything else to edit them, so they should always be 100. Alright, as expected, we're getting that 100 value. So that's good. Let's do a thing that'll help us out. Name plus. So this song is a song that's kind of new. I wonder what you all think it's for. Let me know in the chat. This is interesting. We are getting the inputs of the numbers occasionally, but there's many, many calls when we're not getting it. It's probably because of how fixed update works and the fact that it calls many, many times. And speed gets reset. That's what's going on. Okay, we're resetting speed and then we're calling this multiple times. So we really only want to call this once. We're gonna just do a quick fix here. This should fix our issue. Also, it'll be less calls, which is kind of cool. Ah, sweet. Bold big flank. Sort of already knew what was going on. That's not what I want. Forgot to reset the volume. I should pay attention to the chat more often because Bull Big Flank just tells me how to fix everything. Yeah, look at that. The brick's a little speedy. But we're getting the values we expect now. Oh, hey there. Oh, not supposed to be out here. Slimo, what are you doing? You're getting in my business. Alright, so that's cool. You probably want to adjust those movements because they're a lot smaller now. That's interesting how much it adjusts the way the game works. But either way, we have our numbers working as we want them to now. So, if I'm correct, when we go back into our multi-walk animator, we should be changing the group a lot more often now. Let's find out. Cerberus asks, do I realize what an awesome game I'm developing? You know, some days it hits me, and then I get really excited and I shake and I vibrate, and that's like not useful at all to anyone. So I try not to think about it too much because I got a lot of work to do. Okay, sweet. We're going to all our different groups. This is awesome. So, we're going to our groups, but our animation isn't playing. Also, Brick's moving really fast. Let's slow him down a little bit. Stonewood. Where's our movement speed? Let's close up his memory. I don't want to see that. Here we go. Let's do... you know, it used to be 120 and 60 is what I used to have it as. That's much better. That feels good. That's what we're looking for. I'm just testing out all the numbers right now. I don't think they're all working. So even when we get the animations playing, we're not going to have the right numbers. So I'll have to adjust those threshold numbers a little bit. But anyway, 120 and 60. Let's go adjust that in the prefab. That's good. Save that up. Okay. So, next we need to find out why our animations aren't triggering. Change to group and playing. It could be that something else is triggering our animation. In that case, I gotta find out what it is. Aha! Totally not. We're getting this threshold breach. Angle change is not equal to null. So the multi-block and handle angle change is not happening because animation names.length. I put this backwards. My bad. I normally write it the other way. I'm just going to write it the other way so I'm more comfortable with it. There we go. My bad. Alright, so we're probably going to get some animations playing, but they're probably not going to be in the right directions. And then we'll just fix that up. Look at this guy. He likes to walk that direction a lot. Yeah. So our directions are all completely wrong. Almost backwards. Look at that. That's great though. We got some walking happening. Alright, I also want to make it so that if it's 0, like complete 0, that we play an idle animation. So, idle animation. So if we're not moving at all, we're going to just go straight to it. Idle animation. Otherwise, we want to update our angle and find out what animation to play. Let's go see if that works. Look at that. Alright, now we just have all the wrong angles, but we're getting somewhere. We're almost there. Now we just gotta correct these angles. So, let's take a look at what's going on. We'll do one at a time. When I hit right, it's playing the wrong animation. When I hit right, it's playing this one, which is southeast. So group 1 is southeast. That's not what I want it to be. Let's take a look at the sprite, get in a little bit closer. So, right is southeast, which means it's 45 degrees. Let's find out exactly what our angle is. And I should be able to work off these numbers to be able to set the right values. Okay, so when we're going right, angle is exactly 0, which means we want sort of a threshold between 0, which is, this is the thing that I was talking about earlier that I thought I'd have to do. You actually want to create your thresholds around the character, around the values you're going to be inputting. So if we hit 0, we want it to go directly right. So we want it to go walk east. Directly 0 should be that. So we have it above that setting threshold. So we're going to set this, we're going to offset these by 1. So that we're going to have 315 to 45. I think, well, we want it 360 or 0. Let's try shifting them 1. And that's going to be, let's see what our values are. So that's negative 90. We're also getting negative values, which is not something we really want to be dealing with. Oh, I did the thing where I paused when I was pressing input, so it breaks input. See, okay. So we have 0, 90, 180, 90. So this negative 90 should actually be 270. That's a value we need to make it happen. So we're going to adjust that so that if it's ever below 0. So first we're going to do an addition modifier to the angle. Because we're making this in human readable angles, it doesn't care whether they're negative or positive. It's within the range as far as the code's concerned. But we want these to be in nice positive values. So if angle is less than 0, angle equals angle plus 360, that'll put it in the range that we want it to. And then once again, we have it so 0 is directly right. So the threshold that we want to break is going to be whatever our down is. So you want somewhere in between those two values. So okay, 270 is exactly that, which is weird. Rick's just gonna keep walking. That's fine. Anyway, so let's adjust Rick's thresholds. Bold Big Flank's talking about possibly doing the dot product. We could do that. That's another way to do it, but we need an angle to compare against. So I don't think I want to do that, which is why I'm using angles here. Plus I want the value to be forward facing, like so facing towards the developer. And so it's a little easier if you understand angles. But I probably need to rework how we actually display this stuff. I really don't need this anymore. I should get rid of that, but anyway. So if we know that 0 is going to be east, let's take half of that. And we're going to do, well, let's just shift them all at once. I'm going to try this real quick and see if this gets us a lot closer. Well, this gets us nowhere. Oh, it's because I'm starting at that value. I'd have to change it the other way. Yeah, I'm not liking this tool too much. I'm going to want a different way of inputting this, but I'm going to have to figure out that different way of inputting this. Let's just get it working for now, and then I can tweak it later when I have more time to sit and think about it. But what we could do is modify these. So this will be walk northeast. He'll be east, southeast. Let's try this. Oh, the up and down are backwards. So let's modify that. And I'm not getting the diagonal angles that I'm looking for. We got his up, down, left, right. There we go. Okay, so let's... Most of them work. There's only... The diagonals are not working. So, that's 270. That says 180. It's not taking in the inputs as I expect them to. See, what will happen is it'll get it for a moment. If we look at the log, we can see that it goes to southwest for a moment, but then it goes right again to just directly south. And I need to find out exactly what's going on with the angles there. What's the way I want to deal with this? Oh yeah, I paused it, so everything's sort of chilling there. The issue is that even though I'm hitting angles, like directional angles, we're not getting those directional values. So that's 26.5 for northeast is 26. Yeah, I can do this thing where he only moves a little bit. Oh, you can also see that this is the old idle animation. He changes his outfit every time he walks. He's a quick changer. So 153 should be making northwest. 153 is between element 3 and 4. So that would give us element 4, which is southwest. See, these are all working, but then we quickly go to a single direction. And this is, I'm not exactly sure why this is happening. Let's find out what's happening. To the input. This should give us a little more insight as to what exactly is going on. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at these input values, and I'm noticing something weird. If I go down and then to the left, we get an angle that I'm expecting. If I go left then down, we don't. Y will always be 0 if we hit left first. So let's go take a look at our input code. What is it that's driving that? It's been so long since I've touched the input code. But I'm guessing there's a bug in that. Here we go. These should be calculated individually. It could be the multiple devices issue. and I'm going through all of them, but we're adding it up. So the other device would have to be hitting something negative, which doesn't make sense. I guess the issue is in here. I'm going to limit this just to seeing bricks. Plus, let's see what our X and our Y speed are. Oh, right. So it's averaging those values. This is all working exactly how I expect it to. So, when we start changing the input values, we eventually get an adjustment. But it's if we hit left and down, right? Walk west. And then we hit here. We don't hit a threshold. So either our thresholds are messed up, and we hit west, and then we're not breaking through the next threshold, is the issue. So, let's take a look at what angles we're getting. Go into the angle calculator. We're going to spit this out for brick. Ah, we don't have a name here. We're just going to have to spit this out. That's all right, we only have one thing calling it, so it should be fine. So let's compare what we're getting with these inputs from their actual values. So if I go right and down, we don't get what I expect. Going right and then down. Okay, it's negative 153, and it's constantly 153. But the last time we hit a threshold is here. Change to group 5 and get that from suddenly updating to a new value. So our angle is 180, which is one of our thresholds. Imagine there's a simpler way to do this. Anyway, so we hit 180, which is one of our thresholds, specifically element 4. So yeah. Because we're lower than 255. Yep. So we're lower than 255. We're not going to change unless we go above 255. If we keep going down, I guess. Until we break a different group. So our angle is negative 153. Our angle is negative 150. I didn't pay attention to that. Let's adjust this. Here we go. Let's see what we're modifying our angle to. So the idea with the threshold that we're doing is that when you press two directions, you're going in an angle of 1 out of 360 degrees. And so each threshold tells us when we should shift over to the next animation. So if we're walking at 0, which is in this Unity build with our current view, 0 is directly to the right. So if you're pressing directly to the right, we're getting an angle of 0. So if you start pressing down and right, you should be at a slightly different angle. And what we want to do is we want that to tip the threshold to say, okay, let's trigger a new animation. So what I need to actually do is look at my values. So if we go right and then down, the angle is 206, which is, I think this is because I'm incorporating move speed. That's the problem. So, I was expecting this, so we're getting the angle 206 because our inputs are negative 84 and 42. Our inputs are like that because there's not as much distance you move Y as you move X. So we've taken our circle of movement and made it into sort of oval, like that. So what's happening is that our thresholds are not at perfect 45-degree angles because we're not at a perfect circle, we're actually at the stretched oval. So that's why when I press down and left, I get an angle of 206. That's kind of hard to recognize because I just went through that like past half hour trying to debug this. So instead, I want the angle of the input, the direct input, not the angle of the speed that the player is moving at. So we can get that. I have to expose that variable and have the angle calculator be fed that value. So our last move X is being modified by our X speed and our X move speed. Really what I should do is create a different variable for this, because otherwise these last move X are going to have different meanings in different contexts. So I'll go ahead and I'll create a new variable, which will be last speed X. Yeah. So, protected, float, last X speed, and a last Y speed. What we do is in this one, we set the last X speed, last Y speed, and we're just setting it to the X speed and the Y speed, which are just the straight input values. Okay. I should expose these so we can pay attention to them. And I don't really need to expose these anymore because nothing else is going to be accessing them. So we'll get rid of their pubs and we'll put it on these guys. So Bulbig Flank mentions that facing the direction of the input is fine if you don't use momentum ever, and we are not using momentum in Starr Mazer. So we won't use momentum ever. It should be good. If that ends up not to work, then we'll have to adjust it. All right. So now we should be getting direct input values, or we should be getting compilators. Oh, I do use last move X and Y. I do expose those. I thought no one was using these. Let me put them back. So if you're making this robust because input, you might not be binary, right? I don't know exactly what you mean by being binary. But yeah, there's a limitation on this now. We're not really dealing with momentum, we're dealing with a direct input sort of feature. But the view implementation is different from the angle calculation. All right, we got our angles. They're just the wrong ones. Well, we have some of our angles. So, we have that angle, which is 0. Oh, he's talking about analog versus digital. Yeah, we're going to allow an analog input. And so, yeah, we'll need to set the thresholds so they feel right. I'm testing this with digital input right now. Okay. So we're hitting one of our angled views. And we're getting those direct angles, as we can see in the angle input. So, really what I want to do is like put like just a, see, I need to put them around that. Or I can do a thing where I say equal. There we go. All right. By using equal is a little bit better. But yeah, now when we start doing analog input, this isn't going to work very well either. Let's get this where we want it first. Yeah, we might want to think about doing some adjustment to how the threshold works, because this is sort of not getting us in the range of exactly where we want to be. The issue is because we're just looking at steps. So we're looking at when it should change over. And I think that's how we want to do it. But the issue, there's also the issue of sort of starting off at 0. So we want to adjust that. We want to be walking west until that. And there's also a final threshold that we're having an issue with, that if we get up to the top one. So there's a couple of aspects here. We can make it so that if angle's greater, then we trigger it. And so we start off at 0, and we start going through, and if it gets greater in it, then we hit that. That's the range that we want to do. And if we look at it that way, then we can set our threshold to, like, we start off at 360, and then we go through the smaller values, or we start off at like 315. I wish I could like draw this for you. I could draw it on paper, but yeah. Considering if this is the way that it should be done. I think that's how we will do it. So this is going to be now the angle in which we want to switch to the next animation. So if we're going through and we want to break over to, what is it? We want the original trigger to be, if the angle is greater than a certain threshold, then we'll trigger that one. So we start our threshold at 0. We can start it at 315. Because we're going to go through one at a time. We're just going to step through them. 15, yeah, because we're limiting this with a range. So our second one, our first one should be 315. Actually, 315 plus 22 plus 5, because we actually want to do halves. So this is going to become 22.5, halfway in between. So 45 plus 22.5 equals 67.5. 90 plus 22.5. Actually, I'll start from the top here. 327. 337.5. We're doing in betweens. the two ranges. $247. This should work a little bit better. So element 0 should be directly east. So if we're greater than element 0, still stepping through this. Why not shift the angles by 360 divided by length plus 2? We could do that unless we want different ranges. We might want to really change the perspective. Bold Big Flank makes a suggestion, why do this by hand? Why not have the code automatically do it? It's to allow for different ranges. So right now I have them set in exact 45-degree angles based on input. We might not actually want that. We might want it for like a majority of your bottom input to be straight down and little slices of it. So we want to change the distribution of the angles over the circle. So yeah, that's why we're having this variable here. That might be excessive, in which case we'll just set default values and then we'll only have to ever do this once. But I want to allow that control, especially if we have scenarios where maybe the player is walking and it's a complete 2D perspective, or we change our perspective or our view. We want to be able to change what animations we trigger. We also might want to limit like characters to having only certain animations, such as when a brick is scaled down very small. We won't want to change how many actual walk animations he has because we don't need the detail of all 8. This is also checking for the next one, which helps us in our first case. I think this is what we want. Let's find out. Yeah, the music's just looping. I only got so much of it. Now I've completely broke it, because we're not getting any adjustments. Well, we got our inputs correct now, so I don't need to be spitting out all this information. T+1. There we go. Forgot to increment it. I'm checking on the next one and seeing if we're within the range. So 180 is between these two. Oh, I put them in backwards. 257. My math is off here. 22 plus 45 plus 45. Yep, that's good. That's too big. Math, I can do this. Let's see here, 157. And we have one, oh, we're adding 90, not 45 between each of these. That was my mistake. So 22, we're still doing 45-degree increments. I could like write this out and it'd be a lot easier as opposed to keeping track of it all in my head. That's a lot better. Yeah, okay. I put some numbers in wrong. Well, that's the wrong animation. So the angle is 270, and he's not playing any animation. So 270 would be greater than the last element, less than that one. So I don't see how our logic isn't working. So this should be working. Let's do a test. I'm going to output values that I'm expecting to see. Okay. So our max angle is always equal to angle thresholds t. Our min angle, if t plus 1 plus an angle thresholds dot length, then our min angle equals threshold of t plus 1. So I'm sort of spelling this out because things are not going the way I expect it to. So I'm going to step through it. Alright, let's see what's exactly going on with this. we should see when it hits the correct threshold. I'm not getting the numbers I expect. 22.5 to 337. The 270 is obviously greater than that, and it is less than that. I think I'm doing this backwards. That could be why. So I was trying to use some shortcuts, which didn't really work out for me. So I've sort of had to just spill the whole thing out. It's still using 225 all the time. It's because it is greater than that. And it is less than that. So I'm simply just not thinking through my logic correctly. So I have to actually step through this. We have an issue on 0. Okay, so there's still one issue. We're not getting a value for 0. Because it's checking if it's greater than the last one. In fact, a couple of these are giving us nothing. I'm curious if those animations just don't exist. There's something going on with the playing the animations, because if I segue into it, it'll play them. Right? But it doesn't like to shift a lot. So something's happening in the transitions, and this is with my animation code now. Otherwise, we're pretty close. We got him strutting around in circles, which looks pretty cool. The perspective is a little weird, so we'll probably have to change that a little bit. So we're expecting, when we press left, we get 180. And it makes that, but it's just not playing it. I know what we gotta do. we need to reset the current threshold when we stop getting an angle. So do we want to do that if we get angle 0, if we get 0, 0 for the angle? Yeah. Okay. If x equals 0 and y equals 0, we're not getting any direction. So equals -1, and we bail out. You can do all this fancy stuff. I'm curious if I want to trigger, so we want to bail out if the player's not hitting anything. If we're not getting, if both the inputs are 0, then we don't really have an angle. It's giving the angle 0, which isn't exactly correct. And I was dealing with this in the multi-walk animator. So if we have both of them 0, I'm going to set the current threshold to -1. So that means as soon as we get any input, we'll switch to it because all the thresholds are above 1. They're groups. But I'm curious if I want to trigger the current threshold being -1. And then we don't have to, in the multi-walk animator, really pay attention to this. We just always set it out. So I think I do. Yeah. I'll just toss it in there and we'll escape out. Otherwise, we go off to go calculate the threshold. And current threshold is greater or equal to 0. So this will only trigger when that threshold's 0. We don't have to pay attention to this anymore because we actually have a response title now. We can do this in the callback. If group equals -1, else. Then we can do animator.play idle animation. Sweet. And then we just want to always calculate the angle. Oh man, the Lochester has joined us. Welcome, buddy. So, let's go ahead and take a look at this. We're still getting our issue where I can input directly right, which is the same as 0. Yeah, so as Alex pointed out a little while ago, it's my wraparound code that's not happening quite correct. So everything else is good. We're hitting 90, we hit 45, we hit 0, and it stops up here. We need to actually go one step beyond so we get that range. It should trigger right off the first one though, which is the issue. So it's not triggering off this because 0 is not greater than 337. And that's my issue of the threshold. So I gotta fix that one. So how do we deal with this wraparound issue? If our minimum angle is at the sort of first stop one, okay, if minimum angle is greater than max angle, then it should be or. I'm definitely going to clean this up later, but it was greater than max angle. So if angle is greater or less than angle Let me think about that. So minimum angle is greater than maximum angle. So we're going to have 315 and 22 in these. Angle is going to be less than max angle, so that'll trigger it. And if we're slightly greater than, yeah. So this should take care of it. I don't sort of like the way the code's formatted. I should clean it when I have more time to think about it. But let's see if it fixes our issue at the very least. Oh! Yeah, it doesn't like that. It's working, but he's flicking between both of them. So he's doing a very fast dance. I'm just enjoying this. Just enjoying this. I don't know if my zoom in works. I'm kind of afraid to do it, but I kind of want to zoom in on him. I know what we can do. We can just zoom in. Look at that. Look at them sweet dance moves. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. But we actually don't want sweet dance moves. Instead, we want this to work correctly. Control is greater than 0. It's because we're not breaking out. I only want to trigger the threshold change. Yeah, okay. We're gonna work it like we do the old one. So I can actually take this out of here. Check this out. We can do this whole separation. We can stuff this in here. And now we only have to trigger this one. So we're not actually going to return. We're going to just let it go. And then if new threshold does not equal current threshold. In other words, current threshold was changed. Something it wasn't before. There we go. Let's try that out. Except he never stops walking now. Oh, because nothing actually changes it. New threshold equals current threshold equals -1. Else, wait, well, that should do it. Oh, I have to update new threshold. I should probably think of better names for those, so I would obviously update them correctly. I mean, I guess new threshold is explanatory in that it's the one that should be updated in the function, but... Alright. We only have one idle direction, so he always faces left. But we got ourselves a walking brick. Alright. So I'll need to request some more sprites from Maximo and get an idle from every direction. But that's working. So people are talking about how we switch between mouse and controller. Or so you don't need to switch between mouse and controller. Yeah, you can use the right analog stick as the mouse pointer. So if things all went well, this animation thing is completely separate. It's not paying attention to input because I went and grabbed directly input. So I need to actually find a way to grab that movement speed, even when we're using mouse inputs. Because it's based off the angle the character is moving, which should be being set, but something's not going quite right. So I need to go look into when these values are being set. Now this is what should be being updated, but it's not. Let's take a look at move on path, which is the code that actually makes it so that brick follows a path when we click. And let's make sure this is updating the right variables. So this is doing a direct edit as opposed to using our move character script. So I think I'm going to adjust this so it does use our move character script. But that'll take more than a few moments. I'm curious if I should just do this on stream because there might be something I'm not thinking about. Let's go ahead and just do it anyway. What I need to do, so what I'm looking at here is I'm in a different section of our code because I clicked with the mouse and it didn't walk. You might have noticed that. The reason why it didn't walk is because the method for moving through walking is using pathfinding as opposed to direct input. Normally what I do is I funnel everything into the input and have that control its movement. This is different because I need to trigger a destination reached. What I can do is change the order of this update loop so that we check the distance at the beginning, and then we can fire that and actually break out of this. So let's do that real quick. Okay, so yeah, we're outside of here. So going to destination equal reach, that's fine. Actually, what I can do, I don't even need to do this. So pathways count, that's fine. Okay, so that's good. This should still trigger the stopping and checks. And this is our last piece of code that's actually moving it. The order is important to make sure that when I take out that piece of code that we're still checking and moving correctly. Okay. So, we're still stopping our destination, which is good. Now what I want to do is I want to change this. Instead of modifying where we move in this function, I actually want to adjust the speed. So I need access to the move object. So we're going to get access to the move object on the path on grid. I'm going to create a serialized field which will give access to it in the inspector. And we're going to use this move object. What's great is that this can actually use our physics calculations as well. So this should deal with pushing against objects correctly.